for joining me, everyone. I rarely, if ever, discuss something personal, but I feel that it behooves me to talk about why I've decided to change my name professionally. I've been asked this by many people who have followed me over the years, and I feel that I owe an explanation for the change. In case you haven't noticed, which is fine, I have changed my name professionally from Chuck Morse to Charles Moscowitz, and I need to explain my thinking behind that. There are several reasons. It's a complicated subject. The main reason, actually, is that Charles Moscowitz is my real name. It's not my legal name. My legal name is Chuck Morse, but it's my family name. It's my father's family's name. My grandfather came to this country in the early part of, sometime in the early 20th century, with the name Moskowitz. And as did other members of his family. They were all named Moskowitz. And at some point, I think in the 1920s perhaps, there was a decision made by several people in that family to change their name to Morse. Others kept the name Moskowitz. And there was, I don't know a lot about it, but I think there was a schism in the family that, and this might have been a contributing factor to that. My grandfather went with the Morse side of the argument because he wanted to disguise the fact that he was a Jew. Now, his reasons for doing that were very simple. He was an unskilled laborer who had difficulty finding a job all his life. He was poor. It was a depression. And he felt that being associated as a Jew would make it more difficult for him to find work. You know, he feared anti-Semitism. He feared being singled out as a Jew, especially in his area, which was, as I say, unskilled labor. He was not an educated man in the classic sense. He was very well read. So he changed the name to Morse because he was fearful of anti-Semitism, is the bottom line. And so when I was a kid, I toyed with the idea of going back to Moskowitz, as did one of my brothers. But I got the sense that my father would have been unhappy about that. He never said so. He didn't tell us that we couldn't do it. But he seemed uncomfortable with the idea of it, so I kind of put the thought aside. And I don't think that I'm dishonoring the memory of my late father by doing it at all. But I think that it initially was something that I did consider at the time. I am turning it back to Moskowitz for professional reasons. The name remains Morse in my private life and legally. But I'm going to be honest, and there are several reasons why I've decided to do this now. One of the reasons is because my politics at this point and my open and public support for the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and several other areas that I've decided to explore, such as looking at anti-Israel activists and anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish thinkers and interviewing these people to find out what makes them tick, and several other factors have led me into areas that are viewed conventionally as very controversial amongst liberals, and that's where I live. I live in a liberal land. You know, I mean, I have a liberal family. I have a liberal wife. I have a liberal daughter. I belong to a liberal synagogue. My parents and my in-laws and my relatives and my friends, as my wife's, are all liberal, in some cases way out on the left, I'd point out. And since President Trump has been elected, or even before he was elected, it has become very difficult for me to function in my private life. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to go into details, but I will tell you that I can name several situations where I lost opportunities because I was associated as a supporter of President Trump. And I had to keep a low profile. I'll name one, which was that I was a host of a television program at Boston Neighborhood Network, which is a pretty big station here in Boston. And I had to leave because when Trump was elected, the reaction in Boston was so violent and so horrified. And at the time, my daughter was applying for college. It was felt by my wife, and I agreed with her, that my being publicly associated with supporting President Trump could hurt her chance to get into college. And I think that that is true, by the way. You know, these people there was such a rabid, hysterical reaction to his election in my circles that if any hint of that could have hurt her. You know, I mean, my wife disavowed any association with my politics. She had to lie about it in various situations. And I had to leave the program. There were a couple of other situations that I had to no longer be involved in because of that. And now it's really come full circle because about 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, a Boston Globe columnist, Jeff Jacoby, quoted me in his column, and he wrote a whole column around that quote about the border fence, the border wall, and my contention that having a border wall for a sovereign nation is as natural as locking your door in your house or in your car is for a citizen. He wrote a whole column about that, and he named me. I thought it was a very interesting column. He didn't agree with me. I thought my argument was better than his, but nevertheless, it wasn't disrespectful. He didn't call me any names. But my family was so upset to see my name in print in the liberal Boston Globe and associated with President Trump that it was suggested to me in strong language, I might add, that in order for me to continue doing my radio and my media and my blogging and this program, I would have to change my name because they could not be associated publicly with me anymore. They were embarrassed. And I also will add, quite frankly, that my immediate family is part of this Trump-hating movement. And it has created a good deal of contention in my family. I'm not going to deny that. So, and I don't think I'm alone in that, by the way. I had somebody approach me right after the election and say to me, gee, Chuck, can you come over and visit us and have dinner with us some night with your wife? Because me and my wife aren't speaking to each other. I hate Trump and my wife loves Trump. And we're trying to figure out how to proceed. And so we thought maybe we would talk with you and your wife and see if you can present the Trump side and how you get along. And I pointed out to this guy that the fact of the matter is that we were involved in the same loggerhead. And I really didn't think it would be all that productive. So, I don't think I'm the only one involved in this kind of division right now. President Trump is a counterculture. He's a counter-revolutionary figure. And I understand why the left despises him, because he is threatening to undo over 100 years of the march toward authoritarianism that they dream of. And so there's a violent reaction. Now, I don't think my family is a part of that. They're not consciously a part of it. It's more of a social pressure. It is most unfashionable to be a supporter of President Trump. And it fills them with fear. And they don't have the kind of intellectual, strength or whatnot to be able to step out and be that. And they're not that anyways. They don't like Trump. My daughter doesn't like him. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of young people her age are not fans of President Trump. And she's at a liberal college now, and she cannot even consider supporting Trump, even if she did, but she doesn't. So, therefore, I have reverted back to my original family name, Charles Moscowitz. And in that capacity, for professional reasons, I would like to be referred to as Charles Moscowitz. I can still call myself Chuck, like I've always done, which is a nickname for Charles. But I would ask anyone in the media, like if the Boston Globe wants to quote me in the future, or anyone else, to please refer to me as Charles Moscowitz out of respect for my family and my relatives and my mother, who was absolutely despised as President Trump. Of course, she hated George W. Bush too, and she's a hardcore partisan Democrat. But President Trump has really sent people over the edge. And so the reason I'm mentioning this today is because I do think it has social import. I'm not bringing this up to yammer on about my own life. I think that it does resonate with what's going on in the broad sense in our society today, this kind of division. I think it has everything to do with why the liberal Democrats and the left refuse to open the government, because they don't want to have a border wall, because they just hate Trump and they don't want to give him a victory, and also because they philosophically want open borders, but that's another subject. Suffice it to say that moving forward, I will be rebranding myself publicly, in the media anyways, as Charles Moscowitz. I continue to go by Chuck Morse in my own life. I actually attend college classes myself now, and in college I'm Chuck Morse. And in my private and professional endeavors other than media, I'm Chuck Morse. But I would ask people watching this video to understand that if I am to be referred to in any way associated with the media, please respect my wishes and call me Charles Moscowitz. So that's the story. To me, it's a fine name anyway. It feels very generic to me because it actually is the original name of my family. It means something. It means son of Moshe, son of Moses. That's where Moskowitz means. When you see witz, it means the son of in Slavic. So that was my family name. I'm proud of it, and I'm honored to embrace it for professional reasons. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me on this topic, and I shall return shortly with another program. So have a great day, everyone, and thanks for watching.